Now, as you can imagine, I'm a pretty busy guy. I do a whole bunch of things during the day. And one of the things that I'm currently working on is Psychedelic Essentials Volume 4. But between recording videos and editing them, I haven't really found the time to actually work on that pack lately. So I figured, why not combine all of these things and make a video while making a preset for that pack. So here's the project in which I've been making presets. This is just a kick and bass. Well, there is more stuff in this project, but as you can see, it's all turned off, either through the tracks or just through the clips over here. And this means that over here, I just have a kick and bass that I can lay out ideas on and just experiment with some sound design. And usually when it comes to creating presets and stuff like this, I tend to not immediately jump into something like a MIDI pattern. I just experiment a little bit on its own, and then I see how it works on top of a kick and bass. So in terms of main idea for this patch, the main idea that I have is to make some kind of particle sound. You know how when you make particles, you either use a bandpass and then give it resonance, give it drive, give it fat, maybe set the filter cutoff a little bit lower, and then use note on random 1 over here. And then you get something simple like this. Throw a delay on there. Of course, later we'll do that in the patch. But this is kind of like your standard Psytrance particles. The other way that a lot of people do that is through formant filters, because they have the same kind of peak, but just multiple of them. So you get a little bit of a richer texture. So if I go to formant 1 over here, maybe change the formats around while we're playing. We can also use random 2 over here. We can even set the filter cutoff to go all the way up and down now. And again, you would add a delay. Let's already do that in here actually. So let's set this to dotted and then 1 over 8 here. Of course, ping pong. This would be kind of your standard way of making particle sounds. Now recently in my videos we've been exploring using the noise oscillator a lot, and that is what I want to do today as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to create a shape in the LFO over here. You can hold Alt to snap to the grid if you need, and then the shape that I'm going for is something like this. You just drag it in there. Let's set this to key tracking and let's set the pitch up. Let's go 48 for now. Of course we set the level all the way down and the randomness needs to be down over here. And now we can use this noise oscillator to assign to different parameters. Let's do that by setting the noise over here. I'm going to take this filter cutoff and I'm going to go down by 10%, so we have it at 90. And then in here, I'm also going to set up filter cutoff and I'm going to go up by 10 here. Of course, make sure that it's unipolar so that it's the same as this modulation over here. And together, these two modulations cover the whole range of the filter cutoff. You can now hear that we get a nice gritty texture out of it, and we can tune that texture with the pitch over here. I think I like that idea, but if this is going to be a particle, I would need to make this plucky. So that's what I'm going to do next by just dragging this down, and I'll turn the release up a little bit while we're there. And already we get that kind of bubbly sounds that we're after with a lot of Psytrance sound design. Let's make the tone a little bit more interesting by using FM from the sub oscillator here, because it has just clean sine waves here, which is really nice. And again, just to show you the difference in the modulation, we get something like this. You can hear that that wobbling effect is just completely gone if you turn off the noise oscillator. And we can use this even more if we want to. Let's set up another modulation. Let's say that we want to use the phaser here. Rate all the way down, depth all the way down, and we're just going to be automating the frequency over here, or targeting it, I suppose. Let's go mod source, noise oscillator. And let's lower this, because when it comes to these very fast modulations, you don't want to be too aggressive here. You can hear what kind of texture we get out of that. I also want to make it a little bit wider, so I'm going to get 2 voices of unison here and a little bit of detuning. That's already nice. Let's turn our delay back on, which already has the settings that we set before. And we're going to start working on turning this into a preset by setting up some macros, both on the feedback as well as on the mix. And we'll do the same with the reverb. Let's drag these all the way down for organization purposes. I'm also going to high pass this, which we'll leave over here. And that is our first macro setup. Now we need to assign the other 3 macros as well as the mod wheel over here. Now I'm going to start with the mod wheel because what I like to do with the mod wheel is I like it to overtake certain parameters. In this particular case, I think out of these 2 modulations over here, the filter cutoff has the most effect on the actual texture of the sound. We can try that by setting this to bypass. We can definitely still hear a lot of changes in the sound. What if we set it like this? I feel like the first one is a little bit more changing this way. Like this is the actual vowel of the sound, I would say. So we're going to use that. We just set this to invert over here. We set this to mod wheel. And then we set this up all the way to 99. And then we go in here, set up the module modulation itself. Again, we'll set the same parameter over here. And then again, we set the filter cutoff here. What this does is it makes it so that when the mod wheel is turned up, this first modulation is ignored. As soon as this mod wheel does not read 0, the curve is going to snap up here and it's going to turn off this modulation because we have set it to inverted. But then it's also going to apply its own modulation, and because it has the same range and the same parameter, it's essentially just going to overtake the modulation that it's turning off. I'm just going to have a quick check what happens if we do it the other way around. So we'll set this to filter variable over here, see if that has more of an effect, because I didn't really notice it when dragging it up and down. I guess this way you can kind of determine the brightness of the sound, so I think that that would be a better option. So let me just reset that over there so it's nice and neat. The next thing that I want is probably a modulation on this frequency over here. I think changing that frequency will also have a big impact on the tonality of the sound. I think bubble frequency would be a good name for that. Let's maybe even set this a little bit lower. Like at these highest frequencies, we almost get no effect, which I really like as well. It's kind of like an extra way to turn the effect off almost. And then at its lowest, of course, you get like a very dark, bubbly sound. Next up, what would be interesting is maybe the stereo wave of this sound. So let's set the width over here to 0 and allow for modulation on that together with the dimension expander. So we'll go size down, this up over here. You may notice a little bit of a problem in that it becomes a lot louder when we turn up the stereo. That is not something that we want. That seems to be because of the hyperdimension over here. I'm just going to turn one of these into a level and then we can level balance them. Of course, the other modulation also stays. Both of them are active at the same time. And then for the final one, I think we'll do some downsampling distortion on this. That usually works very well on these kind of sounds. And again, what we could do is set up a random modulation for that. Any of the two will work. Let's scroll down a little bit so that we can lower this. I'm also going to set up the distortion before the hyperdimension so that it gets some stereo wave when it goes through it and the stereo is turned up. And now we have the basic setup for our preset. So what I want to do is I want to test it, maybe make a few changes to the sounds to see if that's needed. So what I'm going to do for these sounds, the way that you want to play them is you just want to make a MIDI clip. We're going to go down to the sub bass register by going down 3 octaves. In this case, let's take an arpeggiator. My arpeggiator by default opens up with 1/16 and a gate here. One of the things that I want to test is to see if there's no low frequencies in here. Very nice. Of course, we do have this thing over here, but it's always nice to check. And then in the context of a track, that's cool. I don't think that we want to have any glide in here. I don't think that that's needed, because usually you just trigger one note anyway. I did send up a pitch bend for 2 octaves up and down, which works really nice. And in terms of the actual sound, there's not really much that I would change about that. Maybe what I want to try is see different pitches for the noise oscillator over here. I also want the phaser to have a little bit more of an effect, so the feedback is going to go up. Cool. To be honest, I think having an option for both 60 semitones and 48 semitones would be nice. I don't quite know how I would do that because I wouldn't want to give the options in between. I think pitches in between would sound strange. You can kind of hear that the texture doesn't really fit there and that it doesn't really line up with the actual note. Of course, 60 semitones and 48 semitones are perfect octaves of the key that is coming in. So that would perfectly line up either with the wave itself or a multiple of the wave that is coming in terms of just the length, which is essentially the whole point of the trick of using the noise oscillator, of course, because that allows you to get a modulation that has the exact same length as whatever key that you press, as opposed to LFOs, which you can only really do that with the frequency over here, and you would need to do a massive amount of tuning if you actually want this to follow the key that you're playing. But I'm going to leave this at 60 over here, and hopefully enough people see this video that they'll know that you can actually turn this down to 48 to get a different texture out of it. Maybe that is something that you would write over here, but honestly, we don't have a lot of space here. I cannot give a long description of the preset. So in terms of the preset description, I just say something like phasey bubbles. And then one of the things that I need to put in here is what the mod wheel is doing. So something like this over here. That is because, of course, the mod wheel doesn't have a label like any of the other macros has. And we are using the mod wheel kind of as a macro over here. So we want to give the user of the preset the information what they need to know about what the mod wheel is actually doing. Of course, I'll put my name in here and then I just have to save it. In this particular case, I have a temporary folder over here. And all of the synths that are useful as particles and stuff like that you would just play as a flat note, is going to go in the synth category over here. So I'm just going to give this a name very closely related to the actual sound that we have. Of course, we have that over here as well. So maybe I'll change this to phaser, just so that it's a little bit different. And that is our preset. Now, if you enjoyed these kind of videos, let me know. I can do a whole bunch more, of course, as I still need to make a whole bunch more presets. So if there is anything in particular that you would like me to focus, make sure that you leave a comment down below. Also, while you're there, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and that you like the video. Another way to support me is by checking out some more of my content, so I'll leave 2 videos up on the screen for you to choose from. So just pick one and enjoy, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.